Hi there, my name's Emma Ruby. I'm a Campus Compact AmeriCorps member serving at Blue Ridge Area Food Bank, and I'm going to be talking about how we partnered with purpose to address child hunger in the Shenandoah Valley. For a little bit of context, please see the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank map in the lower right corner. This will walk you through our service area and the type of counties that we serve. The food bank decided that they needed an AmeriCorps member to meet capacity for two main programs, the Good Food School Market and Neighborhood Produce Market. Both programs were growing the Neighborhood Produce Market was growing pretty rapidly, and the Good Food School Market was a brand new program that needed a dedicated staffer to pilot the program. In Harrisonburg and Rockingham County, the community need for child hunger resources can be exemplified through the free and reduced lunch statistics. 72% of Harrisonburg school students and 41% of Rockingham County school students qualify for the free and reduced lunch program. Harrisonburg also has a very diverse population. Of its 1,800 students at the high school, 56 speak unique first languages. In the pie chart below, I've also highlighted some Harrisonburg City income data. Over half of the city is either below the federal poverty line or at part of the ALICE line, which is asset limited, income constrained, and employed. And in the upper right corner, you'll see an infographic just sketching out the type of food distribution numbers that the food bank sees each year. Starting with the Good Food School Market, this program was funded by a $100,000 grant from Purdue Foods, and the goal for this program was to create a stigma-free environment for high school students to receive food assistance. At the high school level, we know that students experience more stigma than their middle school and elementary school counterparts as they become aware that the backpack or grocery bag they're receiving of food, not all of their classmates are receiving. So the Good Food School Market is open to everyone. We have students take everything from a big box of produce and groceries for the week to just picking up a Gatorade and a snack for the bus ride home. And we think by inviting everyone into the market and making it a fun environment with tastings and music, we can really generate community buy-in from the school. This was how Harrisonburg High School's location operated from November to March, November 2019 to March of 2020. When COVID hit, the program model changed from the open air market to a drive-through pickup model in partnership with the summer feeding program and summer feeding program extension waivers. And this limited the focus on student engagement. As COVID hit, we were not allowed in the building and so could not work with students so directly. And it limited client choice. With the distribution model, students were not able to come through and pick the food that they wanted. Everyone got the same bag of shelf-stable items in bulk produce. In terms of sustainability at Harrisonburg High School, we really focused on engaging with our volunteers and school staff and building those relationships. Since we know that we want to return to the open air market, we wanted to keep these folks with us along the way while we did the drive-through distribution, and then record best practices for that and generate community buy-in throughout the process. And at Broadway High School, they were expected to start their distributions in March of 2020. As you can expect, that distribution did not go as planned. They did not ever get to have an open air market with client choice like Harrisonburg High School did. They immediately switched to a brick and mortar pantry with families picking up their food items or getting them delivered to them. That was the largest impact of COVID for Broadway High School, is that switch in the model. But Broadway High School, I think, will keep the brick and mortar pantry model and not end up doing an open model. We are looking at ways to make their pantry space more inviting and have that be a long-term impact of COVID. We also at Broadway had a limited focus on student engagement, and that just came again from not being allowed in the school building. At Broadway High School, sustainability was a large focus. We trained school staff so that they were ordering their own food, packing their own meals, and distributing their meals through their own volunteer network. We recorded the best practices of that partnership. We recorded the type of trainings that we offered, and we'll have those available for Good Food School Markets to come and other just school-based programs. And we generated community buy-in in the school through visiting all staff meetings on Zoom, speaking to student groups on Zoom, and working with a few teachers that supervised student groups like the DECA club at their school. This slide really focuses on how the Good Food School Market was able to grow during COVID despite all of the constraints. And the Harrisonburg graph, you can see we were up and down and then sort of steadied out about 175. And below the graph is a photo of Janet, who's one of our all-star volunteers and really exemplifies what I was talking about earlier, where the volunteers are really buying into the program. They're assuming some leadership roles and they're making the program so that we need less and less staff time each distribution. At Broadway High School, we saw some pretty big growth. From July to September, we were only serving 75. And from October to July, we jumped up to 215. In Broadway High School, it's important to note, does their distributions twice per month. So we had to rethink our budget for the program, our deliveries for the program, and we worked really closely with the school to make sure, and the other departments of the food bank, to make sure that these were sustainable choices we could continue for years to come, not just one lucky semester where we have some extra funding. The photo below the graph is of a poster that Broadway High School students made, and this was for a school project, and that just again exemplifies the community buy-in and participation from students that we were able to have even during COVID. On this next program, the Neighborhood Produce Market, for program history, this is a mobile market that travels with the Gus Bus, which is a mobile literacy lab operated through James Madison University in Harrisonburg. And during these trips to the neighborhood, the food bank staff and volunteers will unload bulk produce and display it like as if a farmer's market and have translators available. These neighborhoods, it's important to note, have a lot of diverse languages and cultures. And so the translators and having translated labels have been really important for that program. As you can imagine, with a mobile market, it was impacted a lot by COVID. We changed program models 3 times. When I started, we had our first distribution in September in a parking lot near the neighborhoods we served, and we only were able to distribute about 25 bags of shelf-stable and bulk produce, and that's because of transportation barriers among our clients. And part of the reason that we do the mobile labs is because we know the mobile markets is because we know those transportation barriers exist. And so that's something that we had to adapt to throughout the year. For our second distribution model, we partnered with the elementary schools in the city to distribute alongside their extension of the summer feeding program, and we're able to start distributing closer to 200 bags per month to families. And then now we are back on the neighborhood schedule. From May through July, we'll be traveling through the neighborhoods and hope to return to our pre-COVID numbers of about 300 families served per month. Another impact of COVID was limited volunteer involvement. We just could not afford to have volunteers out in the field without and being able to take the correct safety precautions to keep everyone safe from COVID. In terms of sustainability, with all of the changing program models, we really strengthened our partnership with the Gus Bus. I think both organizations relied on each other as we made decisions, and that collaborative decision-making process really boosted the sustainability of the program because it worked well for everyone. We expanded our partnerships to include the public schools, and we recorded best practices and program model updates as we went. The Meal Kit Pilot was a new program that we got started from a $15,000 grant from No Kid Hungry, and this was developed to meet nutrition needs in a COVID-safe environment. And our other capacity building efforts, really, I'll touch on these quickly. The Harrisonburg City Public Schools, we served as a convening organization for stakeholders, and the goal was to streamline fundraising and operational practices across the county. I worked with our partner engagement managers on a recipe distribution, and the point of this was to get unfamiliar produce items just a little bit more familiar by having guides or recipes on how to prepare them. With the Winchester Good Food School Market, we were not able to start up our third market this year because of COVID, but we began the conversations, recorded where we were at, and hope that the third Vista will be able to continue on this effort. With the partner engagement and programs team, I supported efforts on a photo storage standard operating procedure, as well as research on a multilingual helpline, and began initial conversations with that across the department. My main recommendations for my programs are to continue amplifying student voices and engage with them as COVID allows, and add nutrition education back in as COVID allows. And then with working with partners, learn about them and other departments in your organizations, ask questions, and just know that we are not the experts, and really leaning on other folks and learning during your first 6 months or so will be really, really helpful. The challenges I faced were mostly due to COVID, the changing program models, working remotely, and limited time in the field. More than anything, though, I'm so grateful for my time at the food bank and with Campus Compact. Thank you all for the lessons you've taught me and the patience you've given me as I got my footing in Harrisonburg, and for the insight you've given me into the community. I really appreciate you all, and thank you for your time.